everybody, welcome back to the Culinary Barn. I am Enid Grace, and by popular request, I am showing you how to make some simple, fresh pasta today. Throughout these videos, I will make some increasingly more difficult pastas, sort of the more northern style pastas, but for today, I thought we would make something quite simple, a pasta called Capunti, which is from Puglia, and I traveled to Puglia couple years ago now, maybe 3 years ago now, and had a great time there. And this was one of the pastas that I had, including this quote unquote sauce that we're making. Technically it's a sauce, but the whole thing is prepared raw using very simple ingredients. And I like this recipe because, again, we're thinking spring and you get this vibrant green color through some fresh sweet peas, some tarragon, ricotta. It's all very lovely, but it comes together very simply. So we're making a South Italian style pasta. There is a difference between South Italy and Southern Italy, and Puglia is part of South Italy. And one of the most important parts about the pasta of the South is they almost exclusively use semola or semola rimacinata, which is the durum wheat flour. And I think it makes the best pasta. Even when I'm doing northern style pastas with egg, I still use semola rimacinata as opposed to 00. So for this, I've got some semola rimacinata. You can of course just use semolina, but just make sure that it's durum semolina. Sometimes in Canada, particularly at some stores, semolina can sometimes be cornmeal. So you want to make sure on the back of the bag it says, in fact, that it's durum flour or durum wheat. And this recipe is made with just adding water to it as opposed to having to do egg yolks. So I'm going to do about 100 grams of this semola rimacinata. I just love saying that word, rimacinata. And I'm just going to build a little well just with my fingers. And then into the well, just about 55-ish grams of tepid water. Just put it in slowly so it doesn't go over your well wall. And I'm just going to leave this just for like 20 to 30 seconds. And in that 20 to 30 seconds, the water is going to pull in the interior wall of the semola, and it's going to create like a little dam. And it's going to kind of feel like soft putty. And as we add the flour into that, that's going to get absorbed, and it's going to create the starting of the dough. But if just waiting this 20 to 30 seconds pretty much ensures that you won't have water going all over your table. So after about 30 seconds, just go ahead, and I just like to tap the top of the well in. So now I've created almost this little volcano. And at this stage, if you feel it, it kind of feels like soft putty. It's actually quite enjoyable. And then from here, just get in with your hands and just start working the rest of the semola into the flour. And this really is the easiest pasta dough to start with if you're a beginner and just want to kind of get your hands dirty, so to speak, in learning how to make pasta. It really is one of the easiest doughs to bring together. And also this shape that we're making is really easy for beginners, and it's super fun for kids as well, as you'll see later in this video. So just keep kneading it into the wood. And I make a point of saying wood because making pasta dough, as well as bread dough and pastry dough, I always find working on a wooden surface is ideal. If you don't have an 8-feet walnut wood surface like I have here, just use a big cutting board. A lot of the nonas in Italy have marble countertops, and they just bring up a big piece of wood that they work their pasta dough on. So I'm just kneading it same way that you would knead bread, and just making sure that any of the bits of semola on my wood surface are being picked up. So you just want to knead this just for like a minute or two. This is only 100 grams worth, so this is plenty for like one generous serving for one person, or two smaller like primi course servings. So just getting the rest of this flour off, and you're going to have a very soft, supple dough, like so. So I'm just going to put this to the side just for like 10 minutes or so, just so it can rest a little bit, and then we're going to start shaping our capunti. So into a large bowl, and we're going to end up mixing the cooked pasta into the same bowl. I've just got some little petit pois or little sweet sugar peas, and these can be frozen. If it's not full on time yet to be picking your sweet peas from the garden, you can of course make this recipe in a month or so from now when that will be the case here. But by all means use these frozen, just slightly thawed. And then I've got a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano. You could also use Pecorino Romano. For this, when I had it in Puglia, they used pecorino, but it was quite a bit saltier because the farther south you go in Italy, the saltier the pecorino gets. So if you're using pecorino, just don't put any additional salt in the sauce. But I'm just using a good 36-month Parmigiano here. It's a little bit softer. And then some ricotta. And again, this ricotta is quite dry. It's a traditional style Italian ricotta. If the one you buy in the store seems overly wet, just give it a squeeze in a clean kitchen towel, or if you have the time, drain it over a fine mesh sieve just to get that excess whey out so that the sauce isn't overly wet. And I'm going to do just a touch of seasoning with some salt and some finely ground black pepper. This is optional. Also, a version of this recipe that I saw in Puglia, they put a little bit of chili flake in there, so that's up to you as well. And then this is one of my favorite herbs. This is tarragon, or in Italian, this is dragoncello, which is such a badass name for an herb, but I think it's because the leaves of the tarragon look like a dragon's tongue. I don't know that for a fact. You might want to fact check me on that, but I think that's why it's called dragoncello in Italian. But this is, in my opinion, this is one of the best herbs. It goes really well with so many things. I think people assume it only goes with certain things, like maybe fish or chicken, but it's so beautiful in vegetarian sauces, particularly with other green vegetables. And you could, of course, make this sauce with green peas. If you're into fava season, using shelled fava beans would be amazing in this as well. But for the tarragon, again, this is a semi-soft stem. So if you use the rule of asparagus and you just find where it naturally bends, just pull the leaves off the harder part of the stem, and then everything else on that top part, including the soft stem, is edible. Now, if tarragon is not your thing, you can of course use basil or even parsley if you like, but tarragon and peas, very good natural friends. And then for a little bit of freshness, some lemon zest, just right over top of the bowl. You can also use some of the juice as well, but for me, I'm just going with the zest alone. It already smells so good. You get the sweet anisey flavor of the tarragon, fresh lemon, and then the sweetness of the peas. So into this bowl, I'm just going to use an immersion blender. You can use a regular blender if you want, or food processor works as well. So I just want to break the peas down into the ricotta. Now at this stage, I don't want a full puree. I want some tiny little pieces of pea that aren't fully combined. And it's going to look very stiff at this point. We are going to thin it out with a touch of the pasta water, but just to make it a little bit silkier, we're going to go in with some olive oil. And then back with the immersion blender just to get this all combined. Beautiful sage green color. I'm just going to give it a little taste for seasoning. It needs a bit more salt. Oh my gosh, but it's so good. You taste the peas, they're so sweet. And then the tarragon comes through and you just get a little brightness of lemon. We can set this aside now and return back to our pasta dough. So I just had it covered with the lid here, and it's nice and soft and pliable. And I'm just going to start working it just by shaping it into a log. And it's going to be about a little smaller than the diameter of a dime, for those of you that still remember what a dime looks like. And once you've got your long snake of dough, you can use a knife, or if you have a little bench scraper like this, and I'm just going to cut off about 2-inch pieces. But if you want to do it in a different way, you want to picture your 3 fingers, your index, middle, and ring finger put together. And roughly that's how wide you want each piece of dough to be, with just a little bit on the end if you need to. I'm just going to add a little bit of the semolina or semola rimacinata to the board and just move my pieces to the side here. And then you're going to take one of your little, now kind of little soldiers of dough. And again, you're going to work with these 3 fingers, and you're just going to press down gently into the dough and then pull it towards yourself and then flick it away. And then you end up with a little dough that's sort of like got 3 little dimples in it, which will hold the sauce. With all your little capunti done, you can just set them to the side. If you wanted to make these in advance, you could let them dry a little bit. If you wanted to be really ahead of things, you could make a whole bunch of these and put them on a large sheet pan in a single layer, and then put them in the freezer and flash freeze them, and then transfer them to a storage container and bag, and then you can just pull from the freezer however many you need. Pasta has cooked. It only takes about 5 or 6 minutes. And I'm just going to lift these into the bowl. I'm just making a single serving here. The recipe that I'm going to provide for you is going to be for 4 to 6 people, which will take all of that sauce, but I'm just going to make myself a single serving here. So just pull all the pasta from the boiling water. And then I'm just going to take a nice spoonful of our gorgeous green pea, tarragon, and lemon sauce. And then just give this a toss. And if you need a little bit of the pasta water to thin it out, I didn't do a very exaggerated drain. I kept a little bit of the water, so I don't think I actually need to add more. But if you were putting all of your pasta into here, you might need like half a ladle full of water just to help thin the sauce out. But this looks perfect. And I'm just going to serve this up for myself. And last little zhuzh, just a little bit of fresh lemon juice on top. You could do a sprinkle of more parmigiano or pecorino if you wanted to, but there's enough cheese in there. All right, this brings back memories. Oh my God. It's so good. Fresh pasta, particularly Southern style pasta, has this great chew to it. It's sort of beyond al dente. It just is this incredible chew, just the yield that under your tooth. It's so amazing. It's so creamy. You would think that this was a cream sauce, but again, you saw it was made, it's just the cheese and the ricotta, but that flavor of pea is so incredible. And the tarragon is subtle. It's not overwhelming. It just plays off the sweetness of the peas. And the lemon, definitely don't miss the lemon. You need that little brightness. This is awesome. Make this.